Hello and welcome to The Relaxed It's Retirement podcast with your host, Josh Leonard, where we talk about transitioning into retirement with intent. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Wendy. How are you today?
I'm good. Now, where's our recurring co-host? No recurring co-host today?
Well, it's a secret about podcasts, but they're actually pre-recorded. So I'm going on vacation, as we just discussed prior to recording here.
Yes.
So trying to get a couple episodes ahead and not our normal recording time. So Pete is working.
Oh,
with
okay.
clients, as he should be, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And it's funny because it does become a balance, right? This year we've been fortunate that our YouTube channel really picked up quickly. We're getting a lot of eyes on things, but that isn't serving clients directly. We help a lot of people through those avenues, but it's also important to, balance our time there.
Right. Gotta make some money somewhere, right?
That's right.
Okay. So what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about the order of saving money. So I think the common problem, or as Warren Buffett's quoted, is do not save what's left after spending. Instead, spend what is left after saving.
There you go.
For most of us, it's, well, I'll just save what's left at the end of the month. But if we do that, we're not really going to save, right? And then time passes. So this episode is geared more towards an accumulation phase. So we focus a lot on retirement, which is, of course, our primary focus. But many times we get questions. Recently, I was meeting with a younger client, and she said, I got a nice raise at my new job. How much should I put into my 401k? So today I thought I'd go through the order of saving money, a good order in which to maximize different savings vehicles as you're fortunate enough to do so. And we'll talk in general, even if you're not able to max out all these sources, what is a good long-term benchmark for us to stick with?
Okay, sounds good. So I would imagine that the first thing we would do would be some sort of 401k program where it's taken directly out of your paycheck.
So if I had a buzzer sound that said, I would press it right now.
I'd be wrong.
Incorrect.
It's a good thing I'm here.
Let me make this a question then, Wendy.
Okay.
If your washing machine and dryer both break in the same day and the car breaks down, most of us don't have enough money in our regular checking account to cover that expense. So what do?
Well, you go to your emergency savings, as I know is what
you got to have the emergency savings, right?
Well, yeah, but you still get your 401k deducted from your paycheck. So that's going to be taken out first before you get to create your emergency fund. So I think that I was right.
I would say I would not disagree. That is good. That is a behavioral benefit of 401ks.
Yes.
In fact, most now there are even tax incentives. The government and research aligns that it is so good for us to have you auto-enroll that an employer gets tax deductions for that.
Okay.
They also get it for, auto-enroll and automatic allocation. So it's automatically invested. Typically, it's in a target date fund. But I would say we need the solid foundation before we start worrying about retirement. We want to make sure we have enough to cover those accidentals for today, right? Because if we don't have that money in an emergency fund, we put it on a credit card, right? And if your credit's not good, that credit card might be 25% interest, which becomes a debt spiral where we can't ever seem to get out of it. So,
right. Yes.
Let's put some money in an emergency fund, or in retirement, we call that our cash bucket. What do we need to do to get money there? Well, we need to take a little bit out of the paycheck and build it up. Ideally, we need to have that 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses to have that nice buffer to cover when the washer, dryer, car breaks down, roof starts leaking.
And where do we keep that?
Things, right?
In like a high yield savings account or something like that?
High yield savings accounts are ideal. I would say to fill up this bucket, the most important thing is having the money there. Then we want to optimize it, right? So nowadays there's, while interest rates are high, there's great savings rates. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but there's some paying as high as 5.1% now. So great. If you never touch the money, at least you're keeping up with inflation over time.
Yep.
So that would be the goal there. Start saving. So you had brought up in your 401k, well, it automatically gets taken out. Well, if you get paid on the 1st and the 15th or every other Friday, whatever the cadence is, that same day that the money's going in, or maybe a day later, automate a draft over to your savings account. Or, if possible, through your employer, just have a portion of your check go direct to a savings account.
Okay, see, I've done that, but then, if I'm short, 1 month, I kind of dig into it. And I've been told that really just defeats the purpose.
Well, it is there to cover. So, we can diagnose this as much as you want, Wendy, but many times we have an emergency, and that's why we have an emergency fund. I would say we need to buckle down once we deplete the emergency fund to make sure it's being funded again. Many times we'll hear people say, oh, I only spend blank amount per month. And then we see, well, they're spending more, maybe once a quarter or something like that. If you have quarterly payments, you need to figure that out into your budget as well, not just ignore it until that quarterly time period.
That makes sense, Josh.
But I think automating all of these things is the key to success. Many times, having it disconnected from your primary checking account, whether that's in a high yield savings account or just setting up a savings account at a different bank, makes it easier because every time you log into the app or on the computer, you're not seeing, oh yeah, I have, $10,000 or $20,000 sitting here. Mentally, when we see that, we think, oh yeah, I'll get dessert when I go out to eat. But if you're thinking, no, there's only $100 left in my checking account till payday, maybe you think a little bit differently about dessert.
Yeah. Don't get that coffee on the way into work. You make it and take it.
That's right. Yeah. I think coffee's an easy one. There's so many articles about like, oh, don't buy coffee and you'll be a millionaire.
The latte factor.
It's a balance. It's a balance, right? I mean, certainly if you really enjoy your coffee, boy, get that coffee. But don't get dessert when you go out to eat, or don't go out to eat as much.
That's right. So we have our emergency savings.
Step 1, emergency savings. And then step 2 is taking advantage of employer plans. So first off, like you said, Wendy, take advantage of the 401k, or if it's a 403b or whatever the plan type is through your employer. A 401k allows you to save money within a plan, and it's deducted, as you noted, Wendy, before it comes out of your check. Most plans now have a Roth 401k option too. So if you're looking to optimize a tax-free bucket, you can save in that same wrapper as well. An employer helps share the cost of that plan as well. And depending on the size of the employer, it could be very low cost investments within that plan. So it's often a great option. Now, how much to put in becomes the next question, right? Well, we need to go at least up to the match. So if your employer, or like in our 401k plan at Leonard Advisory Group, we match up to the first 5%. So for every employee, our plan automatically enrolls them at up to a 5% match. So they're contributing 5, we're contributing 5, you're saving 10% of your salary automatically. Take advantage of that. That is free money. Is the common saying. I push back against that. I say it's part of your compensation package, right? You're just leaving money on the table if you don't take it. The employers factored that in when hiring you.
Okay. Yeah, that's very true. Good point.
So take that. I think the other one that I like talking about is HSAs. So if you have a high deductible health plan through your employer, many employers are offering benefits with HSAs, whether it's you do a once-a-year wellness exam and they put $500 or some amount in your HSA, or they do an HSA match. Figure out what piece that is in your plan and take advantage of that as well. We want to make sure that that's taken off the table.
Let me go back to the 401k. If I plan to save 10%, and my company matches 5%, does that mean I only have to contribute 5% because I'm going to be getting 10%?
Wait, ask that again.
If my goal was to save 10% per paycheck, into my 401k, but my company matches, like yours, 5%. So does that mean that I only have to put in 5% because the combining of the two would be 10%?
Which would bring me up to a point that we'll get to later, too. In
I'm jumping the gun.
I think the ideal range, so we get this question a lot, so I'm glad you brought it up, though, Wendy, is what is an ideal amount to be saving? Well, that 10 to 15% range is pretty typical. If you're really young and you're able to, get 15% of your paycheck deferred. So if they do a 5% match, do 10, they match 5. Great. You will thank your younger self when you're 60 for putting that money away early in life when it has time to compound. 10% is still good. By all means, please do 10%. And when designing our plan, that was the goal is, hey, if we can get people to a good minimum level, right? We don't want to be a doctor's office where all the nurses are smoking out front, right? We do retirement planning. We want a healthy plan for our people as well. So we think that that's a good starting point. 10%, 15% is ideal. Depending on your income, you can contribute more than that. And I'll table that topic here for a little bit later.
Okay.
Next up, so you filled up your emergency fund. You're taking advantage up to the match of your 401k and HSA if available. Then we need to tackle any high interest debt. So let's say that you have maybe some high interest student debt, some private loans, or that credit card debt that we talked about earlier. It snuck past your emergency fund, right? You didn't pay it off. Now we should be knocking that out, right?
Gotcha.
Knock that out. So credit cards are typically the culprit here. You know, Dave Ramsey's very famous for his snowball method, where you start with the smallest debt and then work up to the highest. Other people say, hey, let's start with the highest interest, regardless of the balance, and work down. Commit to a strategy and go with it. I think there's a psychological benefit, and that's what Dave Ramsey has built his process around is, hey, once you pay one off, you're encouraged to keep doing it.
You feel so
financially,
good.
It makes sense to do whatever you're paying more interest in. But, you know, commit to a plan is the way to have. If you have 4
credit cards, you're like, hey, now I only have 3.
Yeah. Don't pay off the one with the lowest balance and 0% interest. That didn't actually benefit you.
Well, make sure that it's paid off before the 0% is up too.
Yep. So I think that 0% credit cards are something that people get in trouble with. So if you're buying something on there, maybe a larger purchase, and it's 12 months, 0% interest, whatever the amount is, divide by 11 and pay that amount every month. So if you run into a problem, you have one extra month there.
Well, and a lot of people don't really realize is once that interest kicks in, it kicks in for the entire amount that you borrowed.
Yeah. So definitely look at the terms.
Yes.
When you do it, you know, some credit cards also offer cash advances, which have a different rate associated with them as well. So disclosures have become pretty good, right? They're in bold writing on the disclosures when you get the credit card, but most people just look at the nice looking credit card and want to move forward with
it's life. So shiny.
Yeah. Read the disclosures.
Got my name on it. It's so fancy. It makes me feel important. No, I've never fallen for the cash advances. I have always stayed away from that.
I've utilized them multiple times throughout my life. I used it to help establish credit whenever I was younger. I never had a credit card in school, but once I got out, I had 0 credit. So I needed to, my minor credit, but I needed to establish that. So I often use them. In fact, I used them to buy Yana's engagement ring. They wouldn't give me much of a balance. So I had to split it between 2, but 0% interest, and I paid it off, in time. And I think that's a good way to help grow our credit. And it's a tool that we have, but it can be a dangerous tool. So be quite careful with credit cards.
Well, and if I can just one more thing, if you have a balance on your credit cards, you have to be aware of the payment that you're making, if it's going to the balance of the credit card or to the cash advance.
That's true. Yeah. You have to designate them. I know, I think it's Home Depot in particular. Years ago when we were doing remodeling, they would have incentives at 0%. but then whenever you paid, it would go to whatever was last put on the card. So if I had just bought maybe, I don't know, new lawnmower blade or something minor, it would work to pay that off first, not the 0% interest. So
right.
exactly what you were just saying.
Yeah.
It wasn't going where I thought it was going. Therefore, at the end, if I hadn't have noticed it, it would have been a problem for me.
Yeah, they're very tricky.
Yep. So credit cards, always be careful. It's a tool, but a tool that you need to use caution with. So now we've filled up our emergency plan. We're taking advantage of those employer-sponsored matches. We've paid off all credit card or high-interest debt. Now it's time to maximize those tax-advantaged accounts. So if you have an HSA, max that out first now. So get it up to the contribution limit. If it's a family plan, you have a higher contribution each and every year. But HSAs are triple tax advantaged. We don't pay taxes on the money going in. If it grows, we can invest it, or even if we're just getting like a savings rate on the money, we don't pay taxes on that. And when we take the money out, as long as it's for qualified health expenses, we don't pay any taxes on that money. So it's like a magical account, Wendy.
I like magical accounts.
So once the HSA is maxed out, we could also contribute to an IRA or a Roth IRA. Now, the tax deductibility of your IRA will depend on your income. If you're a higher income individual, you might not be able to deduct that on your taxes. So we may want to pause that and then instead max out the 401k first so we get the tax deduction. But maxing out our 401k contributions and our IRA contributions is most likely going to put us above that 15% target that we talked about. But it's a great way to defer some of those taxes. If you're earning enough money that you can contribute over 15%,
right?
Let's save the money so you don't have to work forever, right?
Yeah, I like it. So it's one of those things where, you have a lot of money, you can save a lot of money.
Always. Yep. And these are, most folks will never get to the point where they're always maxing out their 401k.
Right.
I mean, that is a very ideal situation. Where we see that occur with clients more is maybe later in their career, when now they're earning because they've kind of walked up the ranks, right? They're well established, and now the kids are out of the house. Maybe they're done paying for school. So they're not spending as much, and their income's higher than it's ever been before.
Yeah.
For most folks, when they're getting started, they're not able to do that at all.
Or ever. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. But Wendy, if you've made it to this point where you've maxed out everything, you have no credit card debt, you have a healthy emergency fund, I can't put any more in retirement accounts. What do I do, Wendy?
I don't know, Josh. You tell me.
Porsche, Benz, boat? What's the...
Boat. Time to get a boat.
Boat. Okay. If you're still trying to save more at this point, then we would say start diversifying your savings. So look at a brokerage account or taxable account where you can start to put after-tax money in. Now, you will pay taxes on the gains of that money, but this can be a great way to save additional money. If you're fortunate that you're earning enough money that you're contributing to these accounts continuously, it offers a tax advantage for your beneficiaries as well. So if you're in retirement, and let's say that you bought Amazon stock 15 years ago, and you don't want to sell it because it's got really big capital gains on that, if that passes on to your kids when you pass away, they get a step up in basis. So that cost basis goes up to the value on the date of your death. So it's a very inheritance-friendly asset to own.
I don't know what that means. The base one, what?
Yeah. Why don't you know?
What?
Well, thanks, Wendy, because I'm sure there's at least one or two listeners that are thinking the same thing.
What?
Your cost basis is the amount that you put into an investment. So if we bought a stock for $10, our cost basis would be $10.
Okay.
If we sold it for $10, we wouldn't have a gain. There'd be nothing to be taxed. If that $10 stock investment goes up to $100, we have $90 in gain, we would need to pay taxes on that.
Right. So if
when you pass away, it's passed on to the next generation. If on the date of death, that stock is worth $100, they get a step up in basis. So now their cost basis, or that tax base, goes up to $100. So if you hold stocks for a long time, that is a huge advantage within the tax code
Okay.
for the next generation.
Very good explanation, Josh. You just painted the picture perfectly. So it's as if they purchased it at the $100 if it's
That's
inherited,
right.
so that they don't have to pay any capital gains tax on those.
Yep. And this is a way that business interests have been passed on for many generations. So really, if you're at this point where you've saved that much, that is very valuable. Now, for other folks, maybe they have a brokerage account in retirement because they were given some company stock along the way, right? Maybe you worked for the company for a long time, and 1 year, in lieu of a traditional bonus, they gave discounted stock. If that's the case, maybe you also have a large cost basis in that, and you're not necessarily worried about giving it to your kids yet, but maybe you make regular contributions to the church or a local charity. You can gift shares of that stock to the charity, which is a non-taxable event. So you don't have to sell it, and like the example we just walked through, realize that $90 in gain. Since you're gifting the stock as is, passing it over to the charity sells it, and they're a non-taxable entity, so there's no tax to be paid. That's a big advantage, I would say. Also in the brokerage accounts, kids are not charity, but we can use that stock gifting to gift to lower income children, and they can sell the shares on their behalf, and they pay the capital gains on it. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Typically, if you're in that scenario where you've maxed out all of your accounts, you're earning a lot of money.
Yeah.
So you're looking for tax advantages now, which is a big benefit of brokerage accounts.
Okay. Noted. I'll let, if I ever need it, I'll keep it all in mind.
So when you get to that point, Wendy,
yes,
I will teach you all the tax advantages.
I got to get there quick, Josh.
Yep. But I think, going back to the beginning, a quick recap here. The most important thing when you're getting started out, you get a new job, maybe you're fresh out of college. So if our listeners are passing this episode on to a kid or grandchild that got their first job, save some money. You don't need this fancy thing or whatever. It's going to save you a lot of headaches if you get that 3 to 6 months worth of expenses set aside. Once we get that emergency fund done, make sure you're taking advantage of all those benefits at your new employer. If they're matching up to 5%, great. You're going to be in fantastic shape if you never change it again, right? If you contribute 5, they contribute 5, and you stayed there until you got a gold watch at the end, you'd be in great shape. If you have an HSA, take advantage of that too. Especially if you're young, you typically don't have many medical bills.
No.
Don't pay tax on that money. Save it, let it grow, and you can use it when you do need to go to the doctor in the future.
Yeah. I like that one a lot.
Yeah. HSAs are amazing accounts. It's not an amazing account? A credit card with a big balance and a high interest rate. So make sure you're paying those down. And then we need to start maxing out accounts, right? So then max out the HSA, max out the IRA, 401k. And then, as we just talked about, take advantage of the brokerage account and the tax benefits there if you're still looking to save in excess there. Does that give some good framework for you today, Wendy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I appreciate the quiz. Next time, though, I get something right instead of wrong. I want the ding, 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 ding.
Maybe
I
need some buttons, like on a mixer where I can, like if it gets quiet, some crickets maybe,
We'd have a lot of those. No, okay. I'm sorry, Josh. What were you saying?
Yeah, no, I say a lot, so it's. I don't think we have many crickets. I think we carry it pretty well here.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, for any of you listening, if you're just getting started out, or maybe you've been saving in a different order and want to have a conversation around this, I'd be happy to schedule a 15-minute call with you, talk about your individual plan and how you can maximize your savings. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe to the Relax It's Retirement podcast so you'll be notified when we upload a new episode. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel, We have some great resources on there as well. So make sure to check us out on YouTube and subscribe as well. Thank you all for listening, and look forward to talking at you again soon.